So you want to play every Ratchet and Clank game in 2022. I'm going to go through every game in order of release and tell you exactly where you can play that today, as well as some of the differences between each of the versions so you can choose which one's going to be best for you. If there's only one particular game you're looking for, then I've broken this video into chapters so you can jump straight to the game you're looking for and move on with the rest of your day. I don't know, maybe think about using some of that extra time that you've saved to go outside and get some sun, you big nerd. A number of these games are available through PS Now. Rather than boring everyone and going through it at the start of each game, I'm going to just leave all of the PS Now information to the end of the video. So if that's something that you're interested in, then stay back after class and come and see me and we can talk more about it then. Also, I am fully aware that emulators are a good way to be able to play a lot of these games today on a half decent PC. However, I'm not going to be going down that route today. I'll just be focusing on the official releases of these games on Sony's platforms. Finally, I will not be covering any of the Ratchet and Clank mobile games here because, quite frankly, I value your time and my own far too much to waste it on that. Let's rip and tear. We're going to start with the original trilogy, and I'm going to lump all of those together because pretty much everything I'm about to say applies for all three of those games. If you're not sure which games make up the original trilogy, then hey, how are you? You must be new here. Great to have you on board. Ratchet and Clank, Going Commando / Locked and Loaded depending on your region, and Up Your Arsenal are available on 3 different systems. When it comes to playing these games on PS2, you'll be playing them in the way that God intended. That means 480p resolution, a 4:3 aspect ratio, very few bugs, and surprisingly, 60 FPS. The only real downside is you'll have to physically source these games yourself. However, it does have the upside that you might get really lucky and be able to nab yourself a couple game manuals with them. Tyrannoids have no concept of irony. Wouldn't have known that from just playing the game. If playing these on the PS2 was the way that God intended, then turns out God had a change of heart a couple of years later and became all about remasters. So the other ways that you can play these games are through the PS3 or the PS Vita HD collection. All 3 of these games come bundled together in the convenient HD Trilogy collection, or the games can still be purchased separately if you're only looking for one of the 3. The really cool part about this is cross-buy is still a thing, so you can get this game on your PS3 and you'll also get access to it on your Vita or vice versa. Unfortunately, there's no cross-save between these titles, and because they're not backwards compatible, it means that you need a PS3 or a PS Vita to be able to play these, but it's the easiest way to get access to these games now. The HD collection is available for purchase both physically and digitally, and it comes with 720p upscaled resolution, a 16:9 aspect ratio, and holy shit, 3D. Forgot about that period. Frame rate isn't as locked as the PS2 versions, and there are some graphical bugs here and there, particularly in 2 and 3, where Ratchet just never really seems to fit into his helmet, but unless you're a purist, none of these things are going to impact your overall enjoyment of these games. Ratchet Deadlocked, or Gladiator as it was known across Australia and Europe, is available for both the PS2 and the PS3. Similar to the original trilogy, it runs at the same 60 FPS in standard definition, has very few bugs, and also includes 4-player local co-op. For PS3, it also got the HD treatment. However, in that process, some of the cutscenes went pretty funky, so it resulted in scenes like this and this. Yikes. There were some other issues as well. While the game's now scaled to 1080p, none of the models or assets were improved or reworked to match this. The 60 FPS cap is very unstable, and anytime the screen gets busy, it significantly drops. Let alone when you're looking at playing local co-op, it makes it almost unplayable. Speaking of which, the PS3 version can only handle 2-player rather than 4-player split screen anyway. Since both games handle the same, I would recommend just playing this one on PS2 if you can be bothered to find a physical copy in exchange for a more stable version of the game. Size Matters is the first non-Insomniac made game on this list, and it's available on 3 different systems: the PSP, the PS Vita, and the PlayStation 2. If you decide that size does in fact matter to you, then handheld is the way to go for this one. Like most handheld games being ported to console, the graphics and the controls don't really scale that well, turning what was a good game on handheld to like an actual piece of garbage. Playing it instead on a portable system though, with everything scaled down, feels much better, and using controls designed for a system that had no right analog stick. If you own or are planning on investing in a PSP anytime in the near future, you can still get that physically and digitally. However, digital has one hell of an asterisk next to it. The PSP store has shut down, meaning you can't purchase new games from there. However, you can still re-download games from the PSP store if you've purchased it in the past. What you can do though is buy those games through a PS3 or a PS Vita, download it there, and transfer it onto your PSP. Honestly though, if you already have a PS Vita, instead of transferring the game, I would just play it directly through the PS Vita through the PSP Essentials series. Now we're moving on to the next gen, and get psyched to hear me say that a couple more times in this video. This is one of only 2 games out of the whole 15 games we're looking at today that's only available on one system, which is the PlayStation 3. It's still available physically and digitally, so it's not too hard to get your hands on a copy of it. However, if you don't have a PS3 to play it on, then you're shit out of luck luck for this one. For some reason, it's also the only PS3 Ratchet and Clank game not to be available on PS Now. I have no idea why, but if you know, let me know in the comments. I'd be interested to find out. Okay, we have to just make one more quick stop to the dedicated handheld spin-off station before we can go full steam ahead to the console games, I swear. Not only is this a terrible game, but this one's actually a little bit complicated as well, so stick with me. Secret Agent Clank is almost identical to what I said about size matters. So take what I said about the PSP store there and apply it here as well. If you skip that part of the video because the only game you're interested in playing is Secret Agent Clank, then God have mercy on your soul. But do go back and watch that, it will answer a lot of questions here. While it's available on all the same platforms as size matters, the one big difference here is where we get our first taste of region locking. Yeah, remember when games were locked down to different regions? Glad that's not really a thing anymore. While this game is available through the PS3 and PS Vita online stores, but keeping in mind you can't actually play it through your PS3, this is only the case for the North American store. So to all my American friends out there, thank you for taking one for the team. If you feel really compelled to still play this game, it is possible to change your store to a different region. However, it is not a straightforward process, and honestly, it's not worth the effort. No Clank? No Quark? No problem. Unless Clank or Quark are non-negotiable characters for you, in which case, kind of a huge problem. Regardless, this game is available both physically and digitally, as well as being available for streaming on PS Now. Not much else to say here. It's a shorter game that had a digital-only release, then was later released physically outside of America. So, yeah. Don't enjoy it all at once. I'll be honest, most of these PS3 entries are going to start to sound pretty similar in terms of how you access the games today. And the most interesting thing is that Insomniac originally wanted to call it Clock Blockers until Sony freaked the fuck out. It's available on PS3 and PS Now, and it's the last game for a little while to be made in 60 FPS. Honestly though, whether this game was running at 4K or 480p, they never remade it or remastered it, so that version is the version that you're getting. If you must know, it runs at 720p though. It's also available digitally or through that sweet Blu-ray disc. Okay, I actually have some good news for this one. If you're a PlayStation Plus member in November of 2012 and you're like me and downloaded every game that came out each month, regardless of whether you could play it or not, then you probably already own a copy of this game. Weird, right? I guess the bad news on that one is that if you didn't get it then you're roughly 114 months too late to the party. I wanted to warn you earlier, but I've been busy up until now. So look, that's on me. It's available on PS Now and both digitally and physically. And again, it's the first game in the series that was to be put out at 1080p, but as a result was dropped down to 30 FPS. Again, you don't really have any other options of how you can play this game. So there's nothing you can do to tweak that FPS. Oh yeah, Insomniac also tried to call this one Bros Before Hoes, Foreplay, and Multiple Organisms. Geniuses. In another example of Australia being one of several regions not able to hack an innuendo in a subtitle, you may know this game as Full Frontal Assault or Q-Force. Turns out there's actually a bit to cover with this one. For the first time in a while, you have 3 ways to play this game: PS3, PS Now, or PlayStation Vita. On the PS3, we get it again in 1080p, and it's available both physically and digitally. However, the PS3 version does come with a mode that is exclusive to that PS3 version. It's called Full Frontal Assault mode, and it was added as a patch later to the game after release, and not available on the PS Vita. This mode removes the phases found in the base game, as well as giving you some free defenses to start off with. Did I mention that this is a tower defense game? Yeah. Set your expectations before going into it. The PS Now version is just the PS3 version, so it also includes this extra mode. The Vita mode is exactly the same as this, however, without that one additional mode. And cross-buy is back and still a thing, and it's always great to see that. The Vita version was supposed to release alongside the PS3 version, but in November of 2012, it was announced that it was getting delayed till January 2013. Then on the 7th of February 2013, it was announced again that the game would be further delayed to a later point in the year. This has absolutely nothing to do with why you're watching this video, but could you imagine if that happened to a game today? That it was announced that it was delayed a month after it was supposed to have already been released? Mental. 2013 was one of the most messed up years we've ever had, if you're not including 2020 and 2021 for obvious reasons. One last pro tip. When this game originally came out, it also came with a free downloadable copy of the HD version of Ratchet Deadlocked as a bit of an apology for the whole Vita delay thing. Apparently, in some regions, this is still the case. So if you're looking at getting both of these games, I would recommend get this one first, and maybe you'll get lucky and get Deadlocked for free as well. Into the Nexus, or Into the Nether regions, if Insomniac had their way, is the last game to be released on the PS3, meaning it's the last kind of inconvenient game to be able to get your hands on now. Like all other PS3 titles, it's available both physically and digitally, and available on PS Now. A PS Vita and a PS3 version was in the works, but it was cut pretty early on in development. It's that time again to move on to the next gen. Don't get it twisted. Ratchet and Clank 2016 isn't as much a remake as it is a movie tie-in. But I would be comfortable with us all meeting in the middle and just referring to it as a reimagining going forward. This reimagining is available on both PS4 and PS5 through backwards compatibility, and the best thing is that it's part of the PS Plus collection. Not only is this title backwards compatible, but Insomniac released a patch to make it run at 60 FPS, which was a huge improvement for a lot of people. And because it's backwards compat, it means you don't even need to buy a new copy of the game to be able to do this. Let's go. So that moves us to the next gen for the final time and brings us to the second game in this list that is only available on a single system. With that said, just because this is the most recent game, it doesn't mean it's any more accessible, especially depending on what PS5 stock is looking like in your area. This game gives you 3 graphics modes to choose from, meaning for the first time in the series, the choice is ours. You can pick between a fidelity mode, a performance mode, and a performance RT mode, which is essentially the best of both worlds. Something I only just learned though, Insomniac put out another patch after the game's release, meaning that if you have a 120Hz display, you'll be able to run fidelity mode at 40 FPS instead of 30 FPS, which is going to mean that everything will look sharper, you'll get the 4K goodness, and it's going to run a lot smoother than it did before. Alright, it's time to talk about PS Now. So for the rest of the class, you're free to leave. However, I would really appreciate if you stayed till the end of the video. This is all I have. Actually, give this video a like if it's helped you at all, and consider subscribing if you're interested in this sort of content. Let's start off with the good news. PS Now is available on PS4, PS5, and PC, meaning that any of those 5 games can be played through any of those 3 systems. It's a subscription-based service, most closely resembling something like Game Pass, and it's just been announced that PS Now is being reworked into the new PS Plus tiers. This means you won't lose access to PS Now if you have it already or planning to get it in the future. It's just going to come with some additional benefits. One of those benefits is more games being added, so hopefully we'll see more of the franchise included in this system. Now to move on to the bad news. While PS Now lets you download some games to be able to play offline, that's not the case for any of the Ratchet and Clank games. All of them are only available via streaming, meaning you will have to have a consistent and stable internet connection to be able to play them. Sony recommends that for streaming 1080p games, which about half of these games are, you need a stable 15 megabit per second internet connection. What sucks even more than having a bad internet connection though, is just being in one of the countries that PS Now doesn't exist, and there's quite a lot of them. PS Now is only available in 19 countries across Europe, North America, and Japan, meaning if you're stuck in a backwards ass watering hole of a country like Australia, then sucks to be you.
Ooh, self-burn. Those are rare.
Sony have also come out and said that if you're not in a country that gets PS Now, you also won't be getting it when the new PS Plus tiers roll out. They have said that they are still working on ways to be able to get PS3 games into those countries. However, I wouldn't be holding my breath. So there you have it. How to play every Ratchet and Clank game in 2022. Was there anything I missed? Or which of these games are you most interested to go back and revisit? Or maybe even play for the first time? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this, make sure to check out my other videos reviewing the actual games and seeing how it is they hold up today. I'll see you in the next one.